Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happened in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience episode number 488.
Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Are you ready to bankroll your brilliance with nationally recognized transformative speaker, executive performance coach, and best-selling author? Welcome, Dr. Nicole Roberts-Jones.
Excited to be here.
I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Sure. And actually, I would love to tell the story of kind of my journey because I never set out to be an entrepreneur. And don't worry, it'll be a quick story. So this year marks 31 years, even though I'm still 35, that I've been in this entrepreneurial journey. And I started it at a time where I had the career I've dreamed of since I was 5 years old. And I loved every minute of it. So back then I worked in the entertainment industry and I left it all to start this thing that I knew I was purposed to do. So now let's cut to some 17 years in. So 17 years in from that place, my business looked successful. I had both a nonprofit and a for-profit. In my nonprofit, I was working with African-American teenage girls. We had 13 chapters in 10 states throughout the country. In my for-profit, I was coaching women to start and or grow their businesses. And I always say I do serve a few good men every year, but the majority of my clients are women. I had a maxed out coaching client roster, meaning I couldn't take another client. So in 2010, I wrote my first book. And the reason I wrote that book is I really wanted to fill the gap with people I couldn't take on as a client. I thought, well, at least I can give them principles in a book. And I thought the book could also be a fundraiser for my nonprofit. So when that book came out, I started getting invitations to speak all over the country. Dr. Frances, here's what you have to know. It was the thing I dreamed of when I left the entertainment industry to do this thing. I was in the place I dreamed of. However, I was only generating $13,000 in my business. $13,000. And the reason I wanted to start with the story is so many of us, especially as African-American entrepreneurs, listen, we get 1% of funding. So it's so hard when you don't know what you don't know. Here I was, by the way, I had a master's degree by then. I had successfully matriculated through that graduate course. I then became an adjunct professor, not at one, but two prestigious universities, which, by the way, was my daytime job, because y'all know I can't eat on $13,000. However, I said to myself, okay, listen, God, if this is really you and this is really my purpose, you better show me something, because this little $13,000 ain't cutting it. And so I'm coming to the end. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was invited to go to a webinar. I got on that webinar. The webinar invited us to attend a conference. I lived in Boston at the time. The conference was in California. So I'm sharing that with you because the ticket was $500. My plane ticket was $500. I had to pay $1,500 to even pay for my hotel. So I couldn't afford it, but I couldn't afford not to do it. When I got in that room, I started to see all the things that I didn't know that I didn't know. And I hired my first coach who cost me $30,000. Couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford not to do it. I just said, okay, I'm going to have to do a payment plan and figure it out. But here's where I'm going to end. In my first coaching session, my coach pretty much held a mirror to me and showed me. What I realized is so many of us have blind spots. There's areas of your brilliance that you don't even realize are there, or you might not see valuable because you don't do what you do to you. So after my first session with my coach, I had a speaking event. I created a program, a product, because what I didn't realize, by the way, is that I'm a natural producer, which is what I did in entertainment. And I hadn't been producing myself. I'd been so busy producing everybody else. I hadn't stopped long enough to produce my own self. So from that first product and then creating a methodology, which I now teach my clients, I went from 13,000 to over 200,000 within 6 months. So that's been my journey. That's my bio, my resume is really my calling. I'm clear. And the reason why it took me 17 years to get it was because I kept saying, I should know how to do this. I have a master's degree. I should know how to do this. I have an advanced degree, but I didn't. And so that really is my journey, is learning and growing and understanding there's so much more to your brilliance than you can even imagine.
Wow. Thank you for that. And that is so profound. And it's true. It's true. Living proof. So what you say, and you see so many shiny objects when you're trying to do this. So let's talk about mentors. Talk about your top two mentors and what lessons did they teach you?
So let me first say, for me, there's a difference between a mentor and a coach. And so I can tell you what my top two coaches taught me. And the reason I'm saying that, because a mentor is someone that you have to have a pre-existing relationship with, number one, and they're going to fit you in when they can, maybe a coffee here or there. But a coach is someone you have a contractual relationship with, someone that you're going to meet every other week. You determine it. And then you have a goal that you have set to get to at the end of that relationship. Mentor doesn't have that. So from my coaches now, listen, my coaches become my mentors because then they know my business and then I can ask them a quick question, right? So I would say my first coach that I just told you about, what I learned from her is I didn't even know what a P&L was. Okay, so listen, y'all, I'm out of myself. Okay, so I went, my undergraduate degree is TV and film, and then I have graduate degree in social work. Okay, so I thought P&L, I was like, you mean public relations? She was like, oh my God, right? So first, I didn't realize that there were so many money things that people don't teach you. I've gone on to work with doctors and clinicians. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because you might go to medical school, you might have an advanced degree, but you don't understand business. Two separate things to understand. So the first thing was that all the business concepts that I didn't know. Teaching, listen, at USC and Boston University, and still didn't know the business concepts that I needed. I would say that's number one. And then number two, I would say my next mentor and coach after that, and I don't know if she was right after that, taught me to self-care. That you've got to take time for you. I love what I do, so I can be in my office and never come out. So I would say business, infrastructure, and systems, and then self-care, the two biggest lessons I've learned.
Let's talk about risk and rewards. Talk about your worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
Okay, so in my story, when I told you guys I was making $13,000, okay, again, I was teaching at a graduate school level. So I kept thinking, I should know how to do this. And so the biggest risk I took was that moment where my cost $30,000, in case you missed it, and I was only making $13,000, okay, in my business. I realized anytime that you're growing past, listen, when you're starting a business, it's not about what you already know. It's about who you have not yet become. And so in that moment, I realized I had to risk it all to gain it all. I was scared. My knees were knocking. When I took my credit card out, I was like, oh, please let it go through. I'm keeping it real, y'all, right? For the deposit, because I couldn't afford $30,000 with the one full payment. But I realized anytime I've ever grown to my next level in my business, it has required me to take a risk. What I often tell my clients is your comfort and your conviction can never coexist. And every time I've taken a risk, the reward has been the fruit. Now, have I taken risk and failed? Yes. But I always fell forward because I learned a lesson that then actually ends up helping me still grow. So I realized you have to be willing to take risk. I mean, if you ask probably if I ask Oprah, well, we know Oprah took a risk. It's called the OWN Network. Hello, my favorite channel now. But if you ask any major entrepreneur, any billionaire, they have taken risk, but it's calculated risk. So let me just say this. I hear so many people, I meet so many people that say, I'm just going to step out on faith and start my business. Hold on now. Oh, wait, hold on. Because then you blame that on God and you haven't thought it through and made a plan, a strategy. And so God is not telling you to take a stupid leap of faith. Oh, I said it. Yep. Mm-hmm. He's saying, be smart about it, be calculated. But then once you start in it, you got to have faith that it's going to work.
What problem exists in the world today, Dr. Nicole, that you would like to solve?
I think many of us are so tied to, well, there's a couple. I'm trying to think if I can think of one. So if I can do two. One, I see for those that are starting business, imposter syndrome. And those of you that don't know what imposter syndrome is, this is my definition. Google it, because I'm going to probably say something different than what it says on the internet. But what I see as imposter syndrome is when you are not owning your value. And so you think, oh, well, who's going to pay me? Or everybody knows how to do this. It's like you don't realize the gift that's in you. So for me, I realized that the reason that my business failed for 17 years is I was suffering from imposter syndrome. One. Two, because of that, you're embarrassed to ask for help. So I think so many people, and this doesn't just pertain to business, especially as African Americans, even going to counseling, and I've been to counseling, you've got to know when you need a tune up. But we take our cars in for tune up. Why don't you take yourself in for tune up? Sometimes it's body, sometimes it's mind, sometimes it's spiritual. So you've got to know that you've got to be willing to move past fear, which is imposter syndrome is based in fear, which risk, you see, that's all bumping up against fear. And be willing to expand how you see yourself and how you even implement or work in your brilliance. I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned and that biggest place that I've seen So many, like I have a couple calls today with executives that want to start businesses. And because they have this big 6-figure title, they can't see how they can take that same brilliance and people pay them for it. And even as I start working with some of them, they're like, oh, people will pay me for that? Girl, so you've been in your industry for 20 years. You've risen through the ranks. You have all of this insight beyond your degree. And you think people aren't going to pay you for that? So I think that is the biggest misnomer or issue I see out there that I am passionate about solving.
You've dealt with a lot of clients over the years, and I know you have many stories. Share a story as much as you can in reference to one of your success stories that really impacted you.
I like to share the story of Dr. Deborah Tillman. So those of you that don't know, Dr. Deborah, she is America's super nanny. Now, the reason I'm sharing her story is because you already heard mine. So I've worked with countless people who didn't know what their brains was and how to create a methodology that then creates 6 figures for them. But Deborah came to me with a different issue. Now, you can imagine if you're a celebrity on television, she had countless families coming to her to help with her issues. Her problem was she couldn't clone herself. So when you only have so many hours in a day, those of you that are coaching, consulting, you're a service provider of some kind, if you have to be present to do everything you do, you're already capping off not just about the amount of money you can make, but the transformation you can make. So for Deborah, there were 2 things she was dealing with. One, she had a whole waiting list of families. The second issue was some of those families could afford her and some of them couldn't. And so when she came to me, what she wanted to do was to be able to serve more people without having to be present. Now, she probably wouldn't have said it in that way back then. But what I did with her is the same thing I do on the phone with every one of my first clients. Not the first, probably the second call. I tell them that we've got to create a methodology. Now, most people will say, especially if you've been in business for years, I've got to tailor the experience. And that's a lie. Now, of course, I'm not speaking from a script. So if I'm talking here, I'm not going to say the same thing on the next podcast, not the exact same way. But if I'm true to who I am, I'm going to say the same thing. So for her, she didn't realize. I gave her the same homework. She came back to our second call in tears because she didn't realize that there was a methodology present. From that, she created what she calls a greater parenting system, GPS. She now has online programs and group programs, and she still does one-on-one. But the point is this, when a family can't afford her one-on-one or she's full, they have 2 other options at minimum. She does retreats and workshops. And so it gives you an opportunity to serve more people without having to leave transformation on the table because they can't afford you.
That's awesome. Advice you wish you had followed?
I wish I had gotten a coach from the beginning. It took me 17 years and I kept, it's so funny. Okay, let me just see if I can explain what just came in my head. So in COVID, my husband and I bought an Xbox. Now, let me explain to you, we have no business buying an Xbox because neither one of us are technology like that inclined. Computer, I got you all day long, but an Xbox, whole different story. So there's a game called Tour of Duty, and some of you guys may know this game. And the very first thing you got to do on that game is get through a door. I'm laughing because my husband kept doing it and the man kept running into the wall, kept running into the wall, kept running into the wall. And I'm like, give me this game, right? I can figure this out. And then I keep running into the wall. I keep running into the wall. So for weeks and months, running into the same doggone wall, we were so frustrated. My stepson, my bonus son, comes to visit us. He's like, all you just need to do, it took him all of 30 seconds, not even that long. I'm sharing that with you because that's what I felt like was happening in my business. I kept running up, running into a wall. And it was because I was in an area that I didn't know yet. Again, it has nothing to do with how brilliant you are. You're going to use your brains to your business. But when you're doing things inside of your business that you've never done, you're going to be running into that wall. If I would have known then what I know now, I would have gotten a coach from the beginning. So it wouldn't take me 17 years of running into that wall over and over. And those of you that have played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a wall or a gate or whatever it is, but we couldn't get it open. So the man just runs into the wall over and over.
And Dr. Nicole, someone is listening and they're saying, I'm where you were at 17 years ago, financially tapped out. And it's 2 parts. How do you get around that to invest in a coach and then vetting a coach? There's a lot of coaches out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of individuals, they've invested in coaches and they're still at that running into the wall point. What advice would you give them?
So one, I would say get a part-time job because you've got to spend money to make money. So even beyond your coach, there's things in your business you're going to have to pay for. So you need revenue. That's why, listen, I had that daytime job, right? So if you don't have the resources, you need to get a job. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you go get a loan, especially if you're in a service-based industry, if I'm selling a pen or something like that, I can say, hey, I'm going to sell 50 pens and I'm going to make this much. And a bank may give me a loan. However, usually when you're starting out, because you can't substantiate what you're saying, they won't. So you've got to give yourself your own loan from your paycheck. So that's one. And then you need to figure out how much you can save a month to put into your business. What was the second part of your question?
And the second part was actually vetting a coach, finding a coach.
So you need to go on some great first dates. So the reason I'm saying that is because just like there are sometimes in some neighborhoods, there's a church on every corner, or there's a liquor store on every corner, right? Or there's a dentist on every corner. And one dentist might be great for you, and I might go and I might not like it. So you've got to interview people. But before you do, you got to be clear on what it is you need. Now, here's what you also have to do. You might think you know what you need, and then you get on the phone with a coach and they shift it. So if I give you an example, I remember I had a client, I'm going to call her Y because I haven't gotten permission to tell this story. We're on a call. And anytime I'm on a call with you, a discovery call to discover if I'm a good fit, I'm asking a bunch of questions. And the reason I'm asking the questions is because if it's not a good fit, I'm not going to make an offer. I'm not going to put an opportunity on the table for you because if it's not a good fit, it's not going to feel good for you. It's not going to feel good for me, right? So when I'm talking to her, she hated coaching, number one. So I'm like, well, then why are you a coach? And so the more I asked her questions, what I realized is she was coaching people to start businesses and her gift was systems. So I said, the reason you hate coaching is because you have no business doing this. You should be doing this. And so I think when you're on a call with someone, you need to be able to feel like, do they get me? Can they see where I'm trying to go? So even if you have a plan at the beginning and something shifts. So even if I use a doctor, for an example, because I'm going through some health challenges right now, my doctor's an expert. I want her to tell me, this is what I recommend, not what do you want me to do? So you want to always come with what you think you need, put it on the table, and then in the course of that conversation, see if they fit. Now, before you even get to a conversation, I encourage you to watch people. There's all kind of free content out there, live videos, find someone that resonates with you, and then find a way that you can get on some kind of discovery call with them or their team to see if you're a good fit.
Dr. Nicole, what is your zone of genius?
My zone of genius is really helping people get clear on what their purpose is. I call it brilliance, and how to profit from it. What many people do not realize is you came here wired for specific work. When we can get clear on what that is and begin to create all the ways that you should profit from it. By the way, the word profit means gain. So I'm not talking about just gaining for your pocketbook. You're gaining for your clients too. Your clients gain when you do what you do because you help them in whatever area you have an expertise in. So it's equal gain, but it's also gain for the kingdom, in my humble opinion, right? So it's really getting clear. So my expertise is really helping people get clear on their brilliance and all the ways that they can bankroll it. And listen, bankroll is supply. It's supply and demand. We live in a supply and demand world. Many of us have the supply to somebody else's demand. Are you willing to be the answer you were born to be in this world? Or are you going to make people struggle and look for it when it's really here all along?
Talk to a younger you. What advice would you have given to a younger you?
Such a good question. So the younger me did not have self-esteem, 0. It wasn't even low, it was no. And if I think about the 5-year-old me growing up, and I'm from South Central LA, being a light-skinned African-American woman, I was always called white girl, right? And so I think for me, that is a place that had me stuck for years. It wasn't until I was 23 and started going to counseling that I realized that I started feeling like I wasn't enough at 5. So I think what I would have done or the advice I would give to my younger self is to own who you are. You're different. You're uniquely different. You may not look like anybody else around you, but God did that on purpose for a purpose. Once I started getting clear on that, that's when I began to understand my purpose and began to really grow it and focus on it. The advice I would give to my younger self is to own who you are.
What book would you recommend and why?
Book I would recommend is Do It Afraid by Joyce Meyer. The reason I'm saying that is because for me, you guys have heard me say this throughout this conversation. When you're doing something that's bigger than where you already are, first of all, the Bible verse that says, I will do abundantly above all you can ask or think. That's God, Ephesians 3:20, by the way, for those of you that want to look that up, right? If he's going to do abundantly above all you can ever ask or think, if you can't fathom it, it's going to be scary. So the reason I recommend Do It Afraid is because you're going to have to do it afraid. People tell you, oh, you're going to have to push through fear or get over fear. Sometimes you don't get over it. You get through it, right? I know that book really began to open my eyes to all the people in the Bible that had to do what they did afraid. Like, I'll give you one example and then because I could talk. So Moses, and it talks about this in the book. Now, if God said to me, Nicole, you're going to have all these people behind you, and I'm going to give you a stick, because that's really what a staff is. I'm going to give you a stick to part a whole sea. I'd be like, are you sure, Lord? You sure you don't want to get that to somebody else? I don't know if I want to do that, right? So it's really being able to say yes to the thing that you're crafted and created to do in the face of fear.
What have you not done in life that you dream about often that you would like to do?
One of my only regrets in life is that I didn't attend to HBCU. Whether I get to teach at one or go back to school, which I don't know if I really want to go back to school again, but it's something about, when I have had my time as an adjunct professor, I enjoyed pouring into the younger generation, which I still love doing that. Maybe I'll get to teach at HBCU at one point. We'll see. But yeah, my only regret in life is that I did not attend a HBCU.
Why do you do what you do? Talk about your why.
I believe this is my calling. When I was working in the entertainment industry, and again, a job I've dreamed of since I was a little girl, I worked in production and casting. And I loved every minute of it, but I felt like something was missing. When I shifted to do this work, and I'm making a long story short, y'all, what I realized I do now is still production and casting. This is the very way God wired me. If I'm talking to people, I can see all the ways you can make money and all the ways we can produce it. That's just how I think. So I think, yeah, I'm clear that my gift and my calling is to produce people. And that's really what I do in my business as a coach.
Talk about money, marriage, and entrepreneurship.
Good question. So money, marriage, and entrepreneurship. First of all, I'm clear that my husband is my partner. I kissed a lot of frogs, y'all, before I got to my prince, my king. Okay. So by the time I met my husband, and I'm transparent if y'all have not realized that, by the time I met Daryl, I was done with men. Done. I was thinking to myself, I'm going to let him take me to dinner and I'm done. And what I realized happened, and we were dating long distance, is all we had was the telephone. And so we got into deep conversations. So he knows me intimately and he supports my dream. Every man before him didn't support what I do. He supports, like if I'm speaking, he's holding my shoes. He's bringing me water when I'm finished. So you want a partner, and I would equally do the same for him. That supports you equally. He came up with a concept called 3 lives. His life, my life, and our life together. Now, it doesn't mean we cheat, but he has things he does with his guy friends. They go have, boys' night out. I do things with my girlfriends, but there are things that we do together. You don't have to do everything, right? The other thing around money is you've got to be on the same page about money. How are you going to save it? How are you going to spend it? Because if you're not, money is probably one of the biggest finances or one of the biggest issues people go through divorce. One of them, not saying the only reason. It's so important. I think being in a marriage where my husband supports my business and really sits down and he pushes me. Sometimes I don't want to be pushed though, but he pushes me. And he's an executive, a sales executive in a Fortune probably 300 company. And so the things he knows, I don't know. So you've got to be willing to grow and know that your partner, your mate has your back and that you're in this together, even if they don't work inside your business.
Let's take a snapshot of the last 30 days. What was your biggest win?
My last 30 days my biggest win was that I took 2 weeks off and went to Paris for the Olympics. I never leave 2 whole weeks, even though I can. I love my business so much that I'm always like on email, checking email, and I didn't check it. And so my biggest win was to be fully present and hang with my husband for 2 weeks. I ate too much. But yeah, that was my biggest win in the last 30 days.
That's your first time at an Olympics?
It was my first time at an Olympics. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like crowds. So I think we went to 2 Olympic Games. This is my 3rd time to Paris. So I went to all my favorite little spots. Again, I love croissants. So I ate way too many of those. And the thing I will say, my younger self, I would have gone to every Olympic game. But when I got there and it was overcrowded, I was like, do you really want to go to these? And he was like, mm-mm. I was like, good. Right. So I was able to be unapologetically me and enjoy my 2 weeks and not feel like I had to do what I thought I was going to do when I originally set out to go to the Olympics.
Thank you for that. And how do you celebrate your wins?
First of all, I celebrate my wins. I feel like my phone keeps going off. I celebrate my wins. I'm moving it because it's right underneath my thing. I celebrate my wins. One, I have an already done list that I add things to. And the reason I do that is because oftentimes we're on to the next before we stop and realize that what we've done. And sometimes when you're having that imposter syndrome, and by the way, imposter syndrome still comes with me when I'm playing bigger, right? Because I'm always trying to grow my own self. It reminds you of who you already are in a way to where you're going. So one is adding to the list, but then it depends. Sometimes I take myself to a nice massage. Sometimes I go to a nice dinner, but it's some way to reward myself for a job well done.
Dr. Nicole, who is your ideal client?
My ideal client is a woman. Again, I do serve a few good men, so men, don't get mad when I say this. Who is an executive and she's ready to start a business. She knows that she's brilliant, but she has no idea how to take that brilliance and package it into all the ways that she can serve the world. Really, what I call her is an alongside-er, because people tell you to quit your job to start your business, and I'm like, don't do that, because you guys heard me say it earlier. You need money. You got to spend money to make money. So you're going to need that revenue at the beginning. You do not quit your job, your daytime job, until your revenue is at a place that is steady and that you're able to recoup your same salary that you're getting now in your daytime job.
What would you have done differently before starting your business? Besides the coaching, I know you mentioned you would have hired a coach sooner.
To be honest with you, I never set out to start a business. I don't know that I would have done anything differently other than getting help. Got to be willing to ask for help. And for so long, I was thinking to myself, I should know how to do this. And I was ashamed. I think that's the biggest, is that you don't have to listen. You could be brilliant and clueless all at the same time.
Dr. Nicole, if you lost everything and you had to rebuild in 30 days, what industry and why?
I'd be in the same industry. I'd be in the same industry because I feel like I'm called to this place. I feel like I'm called to the marketplace. So there are two areas that I work in my business. One is to help people start businesses. But the other piece is, as an executive performance coach, when someone doesn't like their job, they're usually just in the wrong seat. They might be on the right bus. So I wouldn't shift industry. I would just probably position myself a little better so I could be more powerful starting out of the gate.
Let's talk about artificial intelligence. What is your take on that? And are you currently using it? And why?
So I'm scared of it and I love it all at the same time. So do I use it? Yes. When I'm writing a blog and I'm like, here are 3 things I'm thinking, and I'll throw it in my ChatGPT and the stuff it comes back with, but I always edit it. So those of you that are using AI, please edit it, because some words I'm like, what word is that? I would never say that. So it makes my job somewhat easier. The thing that scares me though, is my husband came in one day. He was so excited because he found that there's this video, AI video something. And he was like, you can do videos without having to be present. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't want an AI Nicole doing my videos. That was a little weird. So I think it does help in some ways. But again, you've got to still edit it. So what I would consider it is like another team member. So even my team, when we all are doing things, I'm looking over it. They're looking over stuff I do. As I use AI, I'm still looking over it and making sure that's in alignment with the brand called me.
When you talk about team members, and we're in a season where it's a little bit challenging finding employees, talk about talent, finding talent, and vetting people to work with you.
So there's so many different ways that I found talent. Some have been clients who I've hired. Some have been people that I've worked with at other places, or we've been on contracts together. And I'm like, hey, I would love to have you over here. Anytime I hire anybody, I give them a 3-month window. And if it doesn't work out at the end of that 3 month, the contract is for 3 months initially, I extend it if it is, so that it gives us time to really get to know each other. Again, it's like dating, right? I think over the years, I've gotten clearer and clearer about what I need and who I need on my team. And so it's a couple things. One, you've got to know what you want. Same thing when you're looking for a coach. And then you've got to also not just look for what you want, but when they come in, they're not going to do it the way you do it. They're not. As long as you get to the end goal, I have to release how you get there. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is, one, getting to know people, taking the time to call their references, especially if I'm calling someone I don't know, and really digging deep in those references. And then once they come in, releasing how they get to the end goal, as long as they get there.
What is one thing our audience can do right now to support your business?
That's a good question. Refer people. So if you know a woman that's looking to start her business, I'm going to give a free gift. You can give her this free gift. I have a Bankroll Your Brilliance ebook. You go to bybfree.com. BYB stands for Bankroll Your Brilliance. bybfree.com. The reason I give out the free gift, and it, by the way, gives you 15 ways to get paid for what you know. And it walks you through the 3 areas that you've got to be clear on in your business in order to do that. The reason I give out the free gift is because sometimes you're a little gun shy. You're not sure if I'm a good fit, or you're not sure if you're even ready to start a business. By giving the free gift, and you can give it out to your friends, it allows you to explore what's possible for you. What I didn't know when my business was struggling, it was all the ways that I could profit. Now, again, profit is gain. So it's not just profit for me, it's gain for my clients. all the ways that I could gain for them. And so that's why I give out that free resource. So yeah, so referrals are always the best.
Thank you for that. Let's talk about legacy. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for being obedient to my calling. I want to be remembered for the woman that helped people get clear on their purpose, the lane that God created them to dwell in, and all the ways that they were able to serve the world with it because I helped them do that.
Give us 3 words that would describe Dr. Nicole.
So fun, fun or funny, that's one word. Creative and determined.
The word is play. How did you or how will you play today?
How will I play today? Well, I got a full day of meetings, so I don't know if I'm gonna play today. I will say sometimes at dinner, when I'm having dinner with my husband, we'll put on music and we'll dance around a little bit. Sometimes that happens if we're both tired. We just, So my play for today will be my dinner break with my husband. And then we both, tonight I have calls tonight. Most of my clients, as you guys heard, work 9 to 5. So I have calls Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evenings. So we have our play time around dinner. That's my play for today.
What is the best decision you've made as a leader?
That's a loaded question. I think the hardest decision, which was the best, was when you have to let people go. Sometimes you like someone and they're just not good for your business or they're not good for you. And so the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my business, well, the decision first was to decide to let them go, but then to have the conversation. One of my big values is to honor the dignity of the human spirit. So I'm always really, really careful to honor them when I'm releasing them. I think that's the hardest thing to do is to say, hey, it's not working. But then you want to also honor everything they have contributed to you.
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
I don't know. That's a hard one. I think I've covered just about everything I would talk about. The only thing maybe is why a methodology is important. Because I've referenced that a couple of times. Why a methodology is important. Hold on, let me drink a sip of water. I can feel myself getting ready to choke. So the reason that I take my clients through creating a methodology is many of you heard me talk about this, you do what you do on autopilot. And so you don't realize what you're doing the way you're doing it. When you have a methodology, when you're on the phone or at a conference or at a networking event and someone's talking to you, you can hear where they are in your methodology. So typically I can say, oh, that's step 3. Oh, that's step 2. It's easier for me to have a kind of concise conversation instead of talking. You know how sometimes you talk too much about something and people are looking at you like, ooh, you're excited about it, but they're not because it's too much. I think the biggest thing for any successful, especially service-based business, product-based, you guys have systems too, is to create a methodology so that it makes it easier for you to speak to a predictable result. It makes it easier for you to see where your clients are in the journey that they'd work through with you. And it also makes it easier for you to close a sale.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
Sure.
What is your favorite comfort food?
Catfish, fried catfish.
The last movie you saw?
The last movie I saw is The Union with Halle Berry and Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, I think that's what it's called, The Union.
You relax doing what?
Reading.
Your ideal car?
My ideal car is a convertible Aston Martin.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Favorite singer or rapper? I'm not really big on rap, so I'm not going to even try because I probably will say Ice Cube and that's so old, right? I would say Beyonce probably.
Your favorite dance song?
My favorite dance song is Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
What food I eat no matter what is salmon.
Work out or hit the couch?
Ooh, Lord, it depends on the day.
Dr. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you. And feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Sure. So best way to connect with me is get my book, bybfree.com. And you can always look up NicoleRobertsJones.com. I am on Instagram, And by the way, my name is long. So in some places it will be N. Roberts Jones. On Facebook, I am NRJ Enterprises with Dr. Nicole Roberts Jones. And then there's always LinkedIn as well. And I'm Dr. Nicole Roberts Jones on LinkedIn. So listen, feel free to send me inbox messages in any of those places. And or when you grab your free book, you can reply to that email, and happy to serve you any way we can.
Thank you, Dr. Nicole. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.